The village of Ikenj was cursed the day King Obadil took the throne. He was not chosen by the gods. He took power with blood, killing his own brother, the true king, and anyone who stood in his way. He ruled with no heart. If you spoke against him, you disappeared. If he wanted your land, your family, your wife, he took them. No one dared to stop him. No one even dared to whisper his name at night. Until Adisa. Adisa was a fisherman, just a simple man. He was not a warrior. He had no magic, no weapons, nothing. But he had anger. One night, after the king's men took his sister, Adisa stood in the marketplace and shouted the truth. The king is a demon, he roared. He kills, he steals, and we let him. What kind of men are we? People gasped. Some turned away, pretending not to hear. The traders quickly packed their things and disappeared into the alleys. But I stayed. I watched. I saw the fear in their eyes, but I also saw something else, shame. Adisa had said what we all knew but were too afraid to speak. The guards arrived in moments. They beat him with the blunt side of their spears until his mouth filled with blood. Then they dragged him to the great river, the one we called Odomio, the river of spirits. The king stood on the shore, watching. His red robe barely moved in the wind. His face was calm, like this was nothing. Like this was normal. Adisa was barely conscious when they tied stones to his legs. This is what happens to those who forget their place, the king said. Then they pushed him in. We saw him sink. The water closed over his head, and the river went still. No one spoke. No one cried. We just walked away. That night, the rains came heavy. The sky roared with thunder. The wind howled through the trees, rattling doors and windows. I sat in my hut, listening to the storm, trying to forget the look in Adisa's eyes before he went under. Then, just before midnight, I heard it. The sound of wet footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Dragging. At first, I thought it was just the rain. But then came the first scream. I ran outside. Mama Ozzy was standing in her doorway, shaking. She pointed at the path leading from the river, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. And that's when I saw him. Adisa was walking toward the village. His clothes were still soaked, dripping onto the red earth. His skin was pale, and his lips were blue. His eyes, they were not his own anymore. There was no life in them, no soul. And he left no footprints in the mud. No one moved. No one breathed. We just watched as he walked past us, step by slow step, until he reached the palace gates. The guards were frozen in place. One of them stammered, You are dead. Adisa did not stop. He walked through them like mist. The doors of the palace opened on their own. The storm raged harder, lightning flashing across the sky. And then, nothing. No more thunder. No more wind. The rain stopped all at once, like the gods were holding their breath. And the screaming began. It came from inside the palace. Not one voice. Many. Shouts. Cries. Then silence. The next morning, the palace was empty. The king was gone. His guards, his wives, his servants, gone. The only thing left was the open palace doors, swinging in the wind. The people whispered that the river had come to take what it was owed. Nobody became king after that. The palace still stands, but no one enters. The vines have swallowed it, and the earth is cracking its walls apart. But some nights, when the rain falls heavy, you can hear it, the sound of wet footsteps in the dark. And if you listen closely, you will hear a voice whispering from the river.